Hi Gemini, this is your April 2015 reading. I'm using the Celtic Crossbreed and the Rider-Waite Tarot. You have two cards for your outcome. Usually it's one card, but I felt drawn to pull out two. So let's get on to your reading. So in your present position we have the Five of Wands, and this is usually a card about conflict, and sometimes we have conflict with ourselves and it can reflect out to the world, sort of thing, and so we're in conflict with just us. But in this card it's conflict with other people or another person, and I feel that Gemini, this is the present position, there seems to be conflict, and it's as if people are crossing the line, or crossing the line, kind of. It's like stepping on toes, and it seems like you, Geminis, and another person or other people are all doing this, or there's a sense of everyone is like going over the line or going over the mark, getting into each other's faces, kind of like stepping on one another's toes, and it feels like people are the challengers, and at the same time they're being defensive, so they're defending as well. I'm hearing a couple of things like a leopard doesn't change their spots, and that could mean different things, because this is a general reading. So it could be like someone is treated in a particular way because they have a behaviour, and so people think, well, a leopard never changes their spot, and they get treated in that way. And maybe the person that feels that they're getting treated as if a leopard doesn't change their spots is defending themselves, and they are stepping on toes as they defend themselves. But also other people who have this belief that a leopard never changes their spots, they're kind of like stepping on toes. So it's like everyone is stepping on toes. I'm also hearing the words, "You don't believe me, that's right. You don't believe me, that's right." So, there's just seems to be some confusion, probably even misunderstandings, judgments, blaming, maybe some verbal arguments. But what is really standing out is that a leopard never changes its spots, and that people are stepping on toes. If you look at this group of people, right, and if you imagine that all they actually want to do is the wands they're holding, they would just like to stretch out the wands in front of them, not above their heads, but stretching out the wand in front of them. But they are so close together that when they try to stretch out their wands in front of them, they just bump into each other and end up stepping on each other's toes or getting into each other's business, so to speak. And yet, if they just took a step back or gave each other more space, then they would be able to outstretch their wands in front of them and not step on people's toes, so to speak. So, it feels like that's what the conflict is. It's people maybe feeling like their boundaries aren't being respected, or don't even know what their boundaries are, and at the same time everyone seems to be stepping into each other's boundaries. Okay, but this is the present, and we have lots of cards to go through. We have the future card, and the outcome card, and the advice card, and so on. So let's move on to the challenge card, which is the moon. And okay, Scorpio, I'm hearing Scorpio because I am seeing this, but I heard the word Scorpio, and Scorpio is a water sign, I think, and so this is either, someone in this conflict, maybe a Scorpio person, but also someone who has a lot of Scorpio in their astrological makeup. You look at the sun, and I usually see the sun as a pleasant lady, but I'm seeing it as a person that's annoyed. And it's, so this card, the moon, which is in the challenge position, it's really aligned to the present situation. It's basically reflecting the present situation of this conflict. you know, by the fact that the dogs are howling. The sun looks a bit cross or annoyed. And perhaps there's a Pisces, Scorpio, or the other water sign is involved. Okay, so there may be a water sign involved. You know, so that's just reflecting it, but what is the challenge of this card? It is to rise above the fears. And that's what I feel the challenge is in April. It is to rise above the fears. So in this conflict, rising above the fears. So what are the fears? The fears are things like the conflict, the drama, the challenging one another, the defending oneself against others, the judging of others, like so-and-so's useless, and well, you never do this and that, and leopards can't change their spots, and you know, all the labelling and judgments and blaming, all that sort of stuff. Stepping not out of line, but stepping over the line. In other words, boundaries being crossed in a not a good way, like in your face, stepping on your toes kind of a way. All these actions, they're considered like the fears. So the challenge is to rise above the fears. It's kind of like when you take a step back and look at the situation as a third person, you see it differently. You may see that, you know, this group of people, they just want to stretch out their wands in front of them, but they don't realise that they're too close together and that all they need to do is give each other space. So you can't figure that out if you're in the midst of the fears. So this is rising above the fears, and we'll find out some more about it most likely as we carry on to the reading. We'll go to the past. Now in the past we've got the Knight of Cups, and it's showing up as love of either business or a relationship. You know, so what is happening here, it does feel to be stemming, or there were hints of it in March, and it's kind of like accelerated or lighting up, firing up in April. I'm also hearing that it's going to subside, or the opportunity for it to subside is there in April. So, you know, love and disappointment, and, you know, it could be, you know, like in romance, but also business, and I'm also hearing romance and business, like they're intermingled, and also just business. For instance, maybe you have a love of your job, or maybe you work at something, at a job, and then you have a romance with someone there or something. Or it can be like a relationship, a couple. There's a couple of, so 3 different things that are coming through in the past, but in regards to love, in those various ways, like romance, business, disappointments, hints of it leading up to this. You know, it feels like for romance type of relationships, it's like getting to the business of the romance, like commitment, and that may have been some disappointments. And if it's just business for you, then it seems the same thing, some kind of disappointments. And rather than also, and here the conflict has been perhaps not only people overstepping their mark around you perhaps, or maybe you've been doing that, but also it now seems as well people kind of sidestepping as well. Now this card here is, I want to go to this, no, we'll go to this card here, which is the Two of Cups, and it's the subconscious card. Very interesting. Okay, you know, it aligns with the moon, which was the challenge position, and the present position, this conflict. So usually this card is about love and agreements and mutual agreements. You know, it's coming up in this reading as basically reflecting the 5 of Wands. You know, the people here are holding up their cups. And let me put it in a different way. If we can imagine that there is no conflict, and so these people are mutual towards one another, no conflict, then this, I would say that this card is two people offering a cup to one another, and that cup is of emotional fulfillment, perhaps commitment, something like that. And both want to share in one another's cups and drink from one another's cups. So with this reading, and because of this conflict, you know, subconscious, what's going on in the subconscious, it is the people are offering their cup up to one another, but not wanting to share the contents of the cup, or not wanting 100% emotional fulfillment for some reason. It's either being standoffish. It's like, here's my cup, I offer it to you, you just can't take a sip from it. And so it can bring up this conflict that people end up stepping on each other's toes, crossing the mark or going over the mark. Yes, you know, sometimes we can be in the midst of conflict and our subconscious wants peace, or to resolve it, or to get away from it. Sometimes we can be in the midst of conflict and our subconscious may not like the conflict, but at the same time it's like, I'm not backing down, or I'm not going to share, or I'm only going to give you this and nothing else, you know. So that's what's going on, and eventually as we go through the cards, we're going to get the information that's going to be the advice, which is about the challenge, which is rising above the fears, and the outcomes. And again, if I remember, I did hear that this is most likely going to subside in April. Above, we have the above card, and I think of this as, you know, the aims, the goals, and so on, of the energies and also of the people. So here we have the aims and goals, and it's the Emperor, and the Emperor is coming across so strongly that I already knew the Emperor was in the spread before I even turned the card, because I just could feel the Emperor and I could clairvoyantly see the Emperor. So, you know, not only is there a water sign person, but there's in this conflict, but there's the Emperor showing up for a couple of reasons. One, the aims, such as law and order. And so when people are stepping on one another's toes, or getting into each other's boundaries, or disrespecting each other's boundaries, crossing the mark, so to speak, then there's a need for law and order, a need to know each other's boundaries and respect those boundaries. So that's the aims, the aim. Secondly, I'm picking up an actual Emperor type of person, meaning that not only do we have a Pisces person involved, or a Scorpio person, or a water sign person, that perhaps that water sign person holds a position of authority. But if it's not the water person that holds a position of authority, then we also have not only a water sign, but someone who has an authoritative position, perhaps a boss, perhaps you know, whatever that person does, that they hold authority in it. So, and also this person of authority probably wants law and order, wants this resolved, meaning no more stepping over the mark, so to speak. Okay, so now we've got the this is the future card, and I've been guided not to get to that. This one. Okay, so this is the advice card, but I'm been pulled to this one, which is the external card. So the external card is the influences. It can be the energy, the people, the environment. And how interesting, we've got the Five of Swords. You know, it's a card of victory when it comes to battles, and I am hearing the war is over, victory. And I'm not hearing the war is won. I'm just hearing that the war is over, meaning this conflict. Obviously, or someone or people started to rise above the fears, creating law and order. And, you know, that can then change the subconscious, what's happening in the subconscious. So, you know, one of the messages I'm getting is that, Gemini, this is you. And it's like you get the last say or the last word. And I feel that because of these swords, I've been really drawn to the swords and drawn to how, in this particular reading, they represent words. And so arguments or verbal confrontations or, you know, communications, I'm being guided to or noticing that Gemini, you get the last say, or you have the last word and victory. And here are these two people here. You know, one person, you know, you get the last say, and what happens? One person just turns their back and walks away. Another person, because they're closer to the water, they may be emotionally hurt. So, you know, what's going on here has an impact on the external, you know, because what's going on here is the external. It's the environment, it's the people. And how does it influence? It gets you to this point of victory. And I'd say it's a victory about no longer allowing others to step on your toes, but also you not stepping on other people's toes. Yeah, it's like boundaries, right? It's like this is a victory over boundaries. This is a victory of creating boundaries. So here we have all the people, they're not noticing that they are in each other's boundaries, that there's just no space. Here, everyone is spaced out, and the victory has been boundaries, have become clear, perhaps. And look what happens when you win the victory, when you get boundaries. One person just turns their back, so that the dramas are gone, because the boundaries are set and clear. So you can't create this drama when boundaries are set. Seems to be the message coming through with this card. And it also seems like there will be, you know, someone will get hurt. And it feels like it's not a long-lasting hurt. It feels more like ego, maybe a bit of wounding with the ego. But that's about it. I'm going to go to this card here, which is the... No, sorry, I'm going to go to here, which is the advice card. And so in the advice card, we have the Ace of Swords. I always see this as the sword that cuts through to the truth. And so it goes with the challenge card, which is asking you to rise above the fears, rise above the blaming, the judging, changing, arguing, trying to change others, having others trying to change you. You know, rise above all of those fears to get to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is what this card is talking about. That is the advice. This is the advice card. It's asking you to get basically the challenge. It's asking you to rise above the fears so that you can get to the heart of the matter, so you can get to the truth. And I feel the truth is boundaries. It's because the conflict seems to be because people are overstepping their mark. And so the truth is to understand that it's boundaries. Understanding your boundaries, understanding other people's boundaries, and accepting them. And when that advice is taken, then there is victory. Our boundaries are like that term, a leopard can't change its spots. So when you get really clear on your boundaries, that's when the victory comes. And then this starts to disappear, because you can't continue the conflict when boundaries have been set so clear. This card is the the future card. So this is the future card. Now keep in mind we have the outcome cards here, and you got two of them, so I feel there are two outcomes. Maybe two outcomes, like there's two alternatives for you, or maybe there's two outcomes because there's various Geminis out there. So in the future we have the Ten of Wands, and it's reversed. You know, it's facing here what's happening in the present, the conflict with someone or a group in regards to people overstepping their mark, so to speak, boundaries. You know, this is facing here, so facing here, it's like it's contributing to the conflict. That's the future, right? But I want to say that because this card is facing this card, right? Let me put them closer. You know, this card, the victory of boundaries being clear is facing this one, then it shows me that in the future this is what happens, the victory. And yet, because there is conflict with one or more people, then some people are going to be maybe a bit hurt. And what I mean by hurt is because I'm hearing the word shame, you know, and so there may be a little bit of shame happening in the future, and it's not long lasting at all. You know, if you think of a time and when you've felt a bit of shame, it's kind, you know, you can think of this card as like you realize something, you feel a bit ashamed about it, and then it's over. That's the kind of energy I'm picking up with it. So in the future there may be a little bit of shame. It may not be for you, it may be for someone else, and then it's over. So here we have the outcome cards and the hopes and fears. So I'm going to go to the outcome cards. So the first outcome card is the Queen of Wands. So this is the hope and fears card, and I'm just feeling guided now to put it under the other outcome. So I feel the hopes and fears has to do with this outcome. So this outcome here is the Queen of Wands. You know, she's sitting on her throne, and I'm hearing she's making her mark or marking her territory, the boundaries. You know, she's looking at the sword of truth, of getting to the heart of the matter. She's sitting on her throne. So, you know, the Queen of Swords, it is a fire sign, and I mean, sorry, not the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Wands. You know, I feel that there are various people involved. So maybe one is a Scorpio, a Pisces, water sign, a water sign person. Here there may also be a Leo person involved, or a fire sign. Here we have a fire sign again. This person, and it doesn't have to be their sun sign, it can be in their rising sign, or they just have a lot of this sign. You know, they could be an earth sign with a lot of fire sign in them. But here we have the Queen of Wands, and she's looking at the sword card. And this is the outcome. This is the outcome for some of you Geminis. You've claimed your territory, or you've how do you say it? You've set up your boundaries. You've set your mark, and it goes with the victory card as well. And it may mean that someone walks away from you, or someone feels a bit shame, but yeah, it's like what you want is to claim your territory, claim your set up boundaries, and this is what you are wanting to do, and you're doing it by seeking the truth, getting to the heart of the matter. And because you are now the Queen of Wands, you are no longer in this conflict because your boundaries are clear. And so I feel that's what this card is about. But we have another outcome card, which is the Fool reversed, and we have the hopes and fears that are going with the Fool. So let's just bring this down here so we can see it better. So here we have the Fool. The the Fool card is the other outcome. So it could be because there's various Geminis. And here we have the Page of Pentacles and the hopes and fears. And so, you know, the Page of Pentacles and the hopes and fears, you know, what I'm picking up is that the fear seems to be the same as the hope. So it would go with this card, which is the subconscious and the challenge. I mean, not the challenge, the present. The present is the conflict, and the subconscious seems to be linked with that. And so here we have the hopes and fears. You know, it's as if someone is being rash and making rash behavior, rash actions, rash decisions, and that's the fear. So perhaps your partner strays, and so you think of him as being, think of him or her as being rash, right? And so there's a fear of that rash things that that partner does, and yet at the same time your hopes is to do something rash to get that person to commit. So the hopes and fears seem to be entwined, and it seems to be to do with rashness on both sides, or on everybody seems to be doing that rashness, doing this. Because it's next been pointed to the other outcome, which is the Fool reverse, which I like, because for this reading, I feel that when it's upright for this reading, it's the person doesn't have a care in the world. It's as if they do a bit of rash stuff, not completely thinking of the consequences. Excuse me. And here, because of the Page of Pentacles being reversed, it's like the Fool being reversed is actually taking the time to look at the hopes and fears, to look at the boundaries, and therefore not have that I don't have a care in the world attitude, or something like that, but more to actually not be so rash and to think of the consequences. So both these outcomes seem to be the same, but in different ways for different Geminis, and or for the different people that are involved in this conflict. So perhaps you're the Gemini, this is the other person's outcome in that conflict, and it's because they're looking at the hopes and fears, whereas this person has looked at the truth of the matter, the heart of the matter, the boundaries. And it does feel that the root cause, you know, rising above the fears, it's to understand that all of this has to do with boundaries. You know, sometimes we get into conflict and we argue and we challenge each other and we defend ourselves and we do name calling and blaming and become very judgmental and so on. And after all that conflict, we realize, wait a minute, this was all to do with boundaries. And that's all it was about. Boundaries. The heart of the matter. Setting the boundaries. So I hope this reading hasn't been too heavy, but you know, this is what has come through. So I do hope you find it helpful, and you know, rising above the fears, and the outcomes looks very, very good for you. This conflict, you know, the outcomes, it subsides because the boundaries have been very clear. No more of this happening where people are crossing the line or crossing over the mark, so to speak. Okay, so thank you for listening, Gemini. I hope this has been helpful to you. I do look forward to reading for you next month. Goodbye for now.